Great, thanks so much. Thanks for getting back promptly from your break, and thanks for joining us for a discussion here. So we've been asked to talk about WiMAX technology trends and service evolution, and as the panel discussed this issue, one of the things we came to understand was that these were two considerably different topics, technology trends versus service evolution, because a lot of the real service evolution issues that are taking place are not exactly driven by the cutting edge of technology, but by a lot of other more practical issues. I talked, for instance, this morning about what's happening with the 16M WiMAX Release 2 IMT Advanced technology trend, and I think that's a real important issue for the future, so that the operators know that they've got an evolution path and that they're protected for the long term and well into the next decade. But on the near term basis, the operators have a lot of other things to worry about getting their service into place. And we're fortunate to have with us representatives of three the interesting operators that are moving into WiMAX deployments. And what we've arranged to do is ask for each of them to give a brief presentation outlining some of their thoughts on the topic, on the panel topic, and they'll have some slides and they'll give you a little discussion, and then we'll follow that with a panel discussion. So I'd like to encourage all of you to be thinking about the questions that are raised for the panel topic, because we're looking for a lot of input from the crowd out there. I don't want to call you the audience because you're part of the participation here. You're just on the other side of the floor. And since we do have a fewer people than we had earlier, then you need to work a little harder to make sure that you get your questions raised. So please be thinking of them, because if we don't get enough questions coming in, then I'll have to call on you and ask you to ask a question. I don't think you want that. So what I'd like to do is first ask our speakers in order to provide a viewpoint using their slides. And the first presenter will be Wayne Sun, who's the CIO of Global Mobile Corporation. Wayne is the Chief Architect of Advanced IT Infrastructure and Service. He oversees customer applications, corporate strategy, and business development for the company.
Okay, so quickly for the friends at the stand of Global Mobile, I'll give a quick introduction what our company is. So Global Mobile was incorporated 2 years ago when the government opened up the bidding for the WiMAX license. And we then proceeded to win the northern license, and we have 30 megahertz in the 2595 and 2625 range. And after our strategy is to launch in a smaller city before we actually roll out to a major metropolis like Taipei. So we have chosen to start our service in Hsinchu. And we have complete our soft launch two weeks ago in early October. And we're now waiting for NCC to grant our commercial license. So if you look at the map here, although geographically, the Northern Taiwan license is actually only covers about 30%, less than 30% of the geography, but actually has about 70% of the internet usage in Taiwan. So, and obviously it's a lesser dense area, so I think it would definitely require less base stations. And our plan is to roll out the service in Hsinchu City, that's where the Science Park is, and then following that with Taipei City, Taipei County in year 2010. Okay? So since I only have 10 minutes, I'm going to jump in real quick to some of the challenges that we're seeing, especially on the marketing side. But before that, I also want to address that. So what makes Global Mobile different is really from the start, we really focus ourselves as an application-driven company. I mean, the broadband is there; it's a pipe, but we really think the next phase of the challenge is how to evolve into an application service company. Okay, so basically the market the drive to build WiMAX is from the two major areas, I have to say. It's the new applications and the new devices that's coming out. I mean, earlier I was talking to Megan on that. I mean, look at iPhone. When iPhone came out, there really is no 3G market. But if, for example, in US, now people are rush to build a 3G network to support iPhone. So that's really a really fortunate model. They have they're really fortunate they have an iPhone to play with in 3G. But for WiMAX, I think the killer app is really the mobile internet. But it's not a killer app per se that we really can make money from it. So I think really the challenge for the operators is how do we monetize the services that's already existing on the internet? And I can share some ideas of what we think we could do. But so quickly just look at this. A lot of the services like Twitter, Facebook, and some of the Chinese streaming service that use up mega bandwidth, some of these services and this application did not even exist like 1 or 2 years ago. So I really think the new advent of the application and plus the new advent of the devices, and I got this slide from Cisco. So we're pretty much at the middle right now, and I think the next phase, when we see all the devices becoming enabled with 3G network, if that will even drive the additional data consumption. So I think that's where the business model for WiMAX comes from. And the most question I get asked, because Taiwan is a very saturated market, so our biggest competitor is the incumbent operator in there, and we have a very, very strong, I think we have almost 80% saturation rate in ADSL. So our biggest competitor, in addition to 3.5G, is the DSL. So people often ask me, the fastest service that WiMAX can provide, which are on network right now, is about 10 megabits per second. But at home, we're talking fiber. You could go up to 1 gig and even 100 gig in the future. So how do you compete with that? And my answer is that if you look at what the major applications, if this is too small, basically only the second item that's pushed out here, the P2P, only that service cannot be serviced with WiMAX, and that's because it's a P2P environment, it's extremely heavy streaming, uplink and downlink. Basically, anything else that you see up here, UDP, HTTP, can be fulfilled with WiMAX because the bottleneck's always going to be on the internet. Okay, the internet is not a unlimited resource. So I want to summarize the 3 technology enablers that I really think that's really driving the WiMAX market paradigm. Is obviously the next generation OFDM based, and this is, we're talking about 4G. So the network technology is there. And also the second one, the devices also coming of age. So what I mentioned, the iPhones in the future. We're hoping for a WiMAX-based iPhone in the future. And then the last one I have to mention is this hot topic lately is the cloud computing. I mean, without cloud computing, you can't imagine anything going mobile. Right now, the ability for us to retrieve and leave our computer consumption resource on the internet, I think that's really the driver to mobilize our devices and even make everything smaller. Okay, so basically, on the network challenges I want to address is in Taiwan especially, it's the coverage versus end capacity. In Taiwan, we're really having a hard time to acquire cell sites due to regulations and myth towards our RF signal. And another challenge we have is really to work with Wi-Fi and DSL. I mean, everyone knows Wi-Fi is not going away. Even Wi-Fi lately, last week they passed the standard. They're going to be rolling out Wi-Fi direct, which basically any Wi-Fi could be a small AP itself. So our challenge is really come up with a synergy with Wi-Fi and DSL networks out there. And then to address the indoor coverage, we really need to pay attention on Pico and femtocell. And how we do that is we really go to an open mobile gateway, so we're not dependent on just one operator. Right now, we're using Samsung, which is great equipment, but we want to leave our options open to bring in the lower price femto and Pico technology into our homes. And then the biggest challenge I have to say is the regulation issues. As far as setting up the cell sites and things like lawful interception, and that's really changing some of our business model. So, on the devices, I mentioned it's coming of age, but we're still having a problem with them because I just haven't seen the low price integrated chipsets, because I think that what really will take off on the devices, we need a chipset with WiMAX and Wi-Fi capability. And we really need, because this is such a saturated market, we really need multi-mode devices, whether it be 3G WiMAX or CDMA WiMAX. I mean, the device is out there, but it still costs like upwards like $700 US per device, which is just not acceptable right now. And another thing is the authentication method that needs to be more globalized. Although, for example, we've been doing roaming tests with Clearwire, and the devices we're getting from Clearwire is actually using TLS type of EAP. So basically, that means we cannot use it in Taiwan because everyone out here is using TTLS, just requiring the ID password. So we're really finding, although device is there, it's not really there yet because we really need the economic of scale is just not there to lower the price. And then quickly also on the cloud computing, lately, I think there's also an issue that we might be over-relying on cloud computing. And the biggest struggle right now is that there really is no common standard for cloud computing right now. And I think if you heard that 2 weeks ago in the United States, the T-Mobile's service, called Danger, actually run by Microsoft, the cloud, the backend system actually failed. So this is something that we really look into. If we really want to enable this service, someone has to come up with a better standard and better reliability on the clouds. I think I better stop here before I take up too much time. But my whole point is how we're going to roll the service. It's not really one size fits all. We really need to tailor our service according to different market segments. For example, you could roll out security, surveillance to the public, to the school, but that's not necessary for the homes. You could roll out for VoIP for the homes, but you may want to charge something to the business. So I think that the whole thing about marketing, we need to do our homework and come up with services that's tailored for everybody. And quickly for global mobile, our coverage strategy is our initial base station design. We're designed to penetrate the first wall. Okay, so for the indoor coverage, we rely on using indoor CPE as repeaters. And our strategy is to build hotspots and indoor coverage as mini hotspots, and then determine where the potential business are. For example, the Xinyi district, the Warner Village, where a lot of malls, we will build sporadically. And then later on, when the south side is ready, we try to blanket the city completely. Okay, so I think that's what I can share quickly for. And lastly, I think what I mentioned earlier, the whole environment. So we're very lucky that we're a greenfield operator. We don't have any legacy systems. So we have, from day one, we set to have our system to be very open. And when we bring in our IMS system next year, we want to roll out a service platform that we could welcome application service providers to come in and build the service applications on top of our platform. And our value is basically to provide the pipe and provide the fulfillment, because we own the customer, we have the billing system. So I think that's the market we will strive for in the next coming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Interesting perspective, and particularly noteworthy that the Global Mobile, as Wayne pointed out, is a greenfield operator with really starting from a clean slate. I think our next two speakers represent companies that in some way represent greenfield solutions from a WiMAX perspective, but both have backgrounds in other aspects of the telecom industry. And Yaneng Huang is the president of V Telecom Multimedia, which has an interesting background in the cable TV business, and see if we can listen to his presentation and see what kind of synergies are developing in that business. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here, and I'll do a quick sort of introduction of my company for those who don't know who we are. And then I'll talk about our service vision, and then we'll have lead to more discussion later on. Move forward. Okay, here's a quick sort of introduction of my company. backward. Not too fast. There's a delay in the. Okay, so my company actually, as I said, as Roger described, is a cable company in Taiwan, and we have been in cable more than 10, 15 years. And we actually also have a fixed wire license, so we actually are laying down fibers in the central Taiwan. We actually cover a large area of the city in Taichung County. We put it down right now. It's about close to more than 4,000 kilometers of fibers, last mile fiber to homes in central Taiwan area. And only about 2 years ago, we got a WiMAX license. And this is actually a very important piece of our service strategy, and which I'll give a description in the later slides. Okay, so what we're trying to do is we build a quadruple network. We have, as I said, we actually have mostly fiber to home. We also have a cable, a coaxial cable to homes. And of course, now we're going to add a WiMAX. And we plan to have WiMAX service by the end of this year. And so we're working very hard to deploy the WiMAX right now. And the idea, this slide shows where we cover, which is a yellow area. And in the central Taiwan is, which is one which is dotted area, is where we have fibers. And we are expanding our fibers to the rest of southern Taiwan. But right now our focus is in the Taichung City and County, which is in the upper corner of the, basically the yellow, the left corner of the area, which cover roughly, the city and county together is about 2.6 million populations, and about close to 60 million homes in the area, which we would try to cover, provide a service by the end of the year. Okay, our service vision is, as I said, we are cable operator. We actually have a lot of contents. We create contents, and we have a cable TV service already in central Taiwan. And what we like to have is, we like to have the customers, our customers, can basically look at any content, anywhere, anytime, and on any device. That's our vision. And in order to achieve that, what we have today is we have, as I mentioned, we have already coaxial cable and fibers. That give us a lot of bandwidth to reach home. But in order really to implement the anywhere services, we need a mobile broadband service. And that's why we could put a WiMAX for. And what we'd like to have is eventually what we can provide is we can provide broadcast content, we can provide on-demand content, and also then user-generated content, and people can look at all this content anytime, anywhere, on any device. And of course, that's our goal. And in order to achieve that, what we have is, this is, sorry, the slides in Chinese, but what we provide is we have 2 wires to everyone. Okay, one wire is the fiber or coaxial cable to homes. And then we have another wire, which is, of course, the mobile wire, which wires connect to every user. And then when they can go out, can go any place, they can still basically enjoy the same service we provide at home. Okay, so from outside or from home, of course, they can use fixed wire. The fixed wire connect with the Wi-Fi. They will give us a lot of good indoor coverage. When they go outside, they actually can from outside access a lot of service, a lot of content at home, including, and of course, a lot of content downloaded from internet to PCs. They can be shared from this mobile wire to home. So that's our vision. So provide 2 wires, we can actually bundle a lot of service together and then provide the customer unified, like I mentioned, the 4A service, anytime, anywhere, any content on any device. So the central of this is a TV platform. We have this is called TV platform, it's called VTV. And the platform is actually our infrastructure to allow us to put any content, like a user-generated content, on-demand content, and of course the broadcast content on this platform. And allow us to use this platform to share services, to create services. And this is where we're trying to build. And of course, the WiMAX is very important for us to be able to reach the goal. We actually, our content, we have lots of content, including we can actually, recently we offer the very, $1 NT, you actually can watch one blockbuster movie. Okay, and then we have tons of blockbuster movies available on our network. And the idea is you can actually use any device to watch blockbuster movie. For example, you can pay rental for 3 days. And then in these 3 days, you can use TV to watch the content. You can go to other places, use PC to watch the content. Of course, when you're in the car or when you're on the move, you can use any mobile device to watch the content. So pay this one price and you watch content anytime using any device. Sometimes actually the company is in a group, and the group is called Markware Group. And Markware Group, we also offer other services like hotel business. We actually have a hotel which could be in service in 2010. And this could be a good showcase hotel for WiMAX. And what we intend to have is for guests checking the hotel, we're going to give them free WiMAX services. So they actually can come to Taichung and stay in the hotel and then go out, they can have a meeting anywhere in Taichung and still have a broadband access. Fast broadband access. And of course, under this broadband access, we can offer a lot of content services for guests and for users to experiment WiMAX services. We also are in a so-called trading business, and trading trading also is good for WiMAX because a lot of logistics movement, a lot of application can use WiMAX to provide this trading business. And we're also in the construction business. We also building residential and commercial buildings. And again, when we build a building, we make sure we have 2 wires into this building. One is fiber, one is WiMAX. And again, using these 2 wires, we can bundle a lot of services for these buildings. We also have the e-shopping business. So using basically WiMAX and broadband, we can actually provide a lot of content, including shopping content, over these 2 wires. So people can basically using this one and combine with the WiMAX and the location-based services, we can do a lot of advertisement and sort of target the customer, push type of advertisement to customers. And this actually can help customers to select the goods they want to buy. So we, excuse me, we also have a security creation business. So basically we have a baseball stadium. We operate a Taichung baseball stadium. We have a baseball team. And the stadium is also very good to generate content. We have large concerts on the stadium. We have a lot of sports events on the stadium, which actually generate a lot of content for our customers. And when for customers at home, in office, or on the move, they can still watch the sports event no matter where they are and anytime, anywhere. And I mentioned the stadium is that one of the best stadium in Taiwan actually is in Taichung. And we actually operate a stadium. So as I mentioned, it's a big stadium. It's a baseball stadium, but the stadium is also good for a lot of other events, like a big concert. We're going to have a series of big concerts in Taichung. And then, of course, with the concert, we can generate a lot of content. And we're going to use WiMAX in the stadium. So people come to the stadium, again, it's WiMAX enabled. They can rent a device from us. They can buy devices from us. They can watch the sports in the stadium, and then they can do from the WiMAX connection. They can watch a lot of services, including a lot of real-time replay, also a lot of advertisement service in the baseball stadium. This is about a quick summary of where we are. Of course, that WiMAX has it enables us to do a lot of services. A lot of services are still being created. I'm coming here to also learn a lot from all of you about what services we can create using this basically the possible network. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Yanan, for that perspective on service evolution and your company's operations. Our third panelist we'd like to hear from is Magnus Johansson, who's the Group Director of Broadband with Digicel Group. He's been involved for a number of years in strategic vision and leading implementation of new technologies. He joined Digicel, the largest mobile operator in the Caribbean, in 2006, and he oversees 32 countries in the Caribbean, Central America, and the South Pacific. And this company has an interesting background that I think you'd like to hear about from a WiMAX perspective. So, Magnus, why don't you tell us about that?
Okay. If you don't mind, I'm going to stand up because it took me 28.5 hours of sitting down to get here. So, so if you don't mind, and then I can see actually the screen. So, thank you very much for staying so late. I know I have jet lag, and I think some in the room has it as well. So I tried to keep it peppy and to see if you can get it interesting. So I want to share with you what we have done. We have been in the WiMAX business since 2006, and I want to share some of our lessons learned and leave you some perspective of why would a GSM edge operator actually do WiMAX. Well, for us it is 2.5G and mobile WiMAX equals 4G in the Caribbean. And here's a little view of Kingston, Jamaica, where our headquarters are. And we said we are in 32 countries, so we are spread out in countries that are as big as 30,000 people in the whole country to 9 million. So that's the spread of what we are. And we have about 10 million mobile subscribers today. We have WiMAX in the Cayman Islands and in Jamaica for the corporate, and we are planning on building out now a 2.5 gigahertz network in Jamaica in the next 6 to 8 months. And we own spectrum that covers about 10 million POPs. And on average, we have between 30 to 60 megahertz of spectrum. And it's a mix, as you see, in between 2.5, 2.3, and 3.5. And just putting this up, because this is really what, so to speak, driving myself in everything that I do when it comes to technology, and what I think WiMAX need to follow. If you don't get these 6 things correctly, you're not going to get customer adoption. You have to have cool devices. You have to be better than what they currently have. You have to make that you don't have to change your behavior. It has to be plug and play. It has to be value for money. And of course, great customer care. If you miss any of these, you can pack up and go home. All right? So here's our vision. So now, why WiMAX and not 3G? We are a mobile operator. Well, we are in an emerging market. There is fixed line to 25% of households. The rest cannot get it. So we need to get a nationwide basic broadband network that is high capacity and high speed. WiMAX fits that perfectly. And also, I call it that WiMAX is the 2.5G's best friend. Because if you look at this, you have wireless to wired, enterprise to personal. It's kind of a busy little graph here, but really it is to say that you can be in the wired world and you can be in the wireless for either enterprise or personal, and WiMAX plays in all of those. It's a chameleon. It depends on what you as an operator wants to start. You can start either in the wireless point-to-point. You can go in and compete against the wired enterprise like PSTN, frame relay, dedicated internet access, or the ADSL cable replacement, or in the 3G competitions. It's up to you. And as we know, I think the quote down there from Lance in PC Magazine, that he loves his BlackBerry, but he hates 3G, right? And I think that is the common of, 3G had a great story, but it didn't live up to its capabilities. And I think that's where WiMAX is now. We have a great network, and we have great applications because it's the whole internet. But where is our devices? So that's why I'm here. I'm here to meet with everybody in Taiwan that's making cool devices, and I want to go home to Jamaica and say, look, this is what we're going to do, all right? And this is, again, the only thing that really matters is that WiMAX can emulate classic corporate services and residential and support VoIP and all the QoS. 3G cannot do that, period. So what have we done? Well, we launched in April 2007 a fixed network, an 802.16d. This market was a full monopoly with the incumbent cable and wireless before Digicel came in. We kicked their butt in the GSM market, where we have 75% market share. And in less than 3 years, we have already penetrated 80% of the corporate market, about 30% wallet share. It's a little covered up by the picture. And the two #1 sellers is actually layer 2 VPNs and voice services. We hook WiMAX into the IPPBX and offer full voice services. And we're using our flexible billing engine from the GSM that can, charge by the second instead of by the minute for the incumbent. So by taking our voice service, you save 25% on day one. So it's been a very good, to be able to compete in this full service provider spectrum, if you would. And then we did our first little Cayman, has 50,000 customers. It's a very small island, but it had a 70% penetration of broadband. When we got in there and we deployed our 2.3 E network there, we really commenced and taking 25% market share in less than 180 days. And we now have 30%, and we're waiting to introduce mobility, prepaid, and other things. And as you can see, we have prepaid now for about 5 months, and already prepaid for us is the killer app. If I can charge you by the day, by the week, by the month, by the quarter, by the year, and you prepay me, that is, and it's flexible for the customer. No contracts, nothing. That to me is where it is a service differentiator that the fixed line operator can't really do. And we have a big thing now. We have announced just the last month that we're going to invest 22.5 million in Jamaica in WiMAX. And the project has started. Rollout is commencing, and we will roll out 200 base stations around Jamaica, 60% population coverage on day one. And a little, we're going to have unlimited usage. We're telling a lot in up front without having the broadband network, and people say, but aren't you giving away everything? Yes, but nobody can compete with it. 3G cannot compete with it, fixed line cannot compete with it. We're the only WiMAX player in town. So I'd rather tell the customer to wait than to, let them say, oh, but why didn't you say anything? I went with 3G or with ADSL. If you have told me, I would have come to you. So that's why. So here's just to show a little indicative. This is Jamaica and the coverage. So we're going to cover where people live, work, and play. It's not going to be contiguous coverage on roads and other things, but we will have a very good coverage of WiMAX for both indoor and outdoor. And just to talk a little about coverage. We design our network to be a little technical, to really be QAM 16.5 at the edge, to really maximize on capacity and coverage. That's what we have seen is the best in our environment. And I think anybody has to look at their own environment, but for us it's the hurricane belt. Everything is built with concrete, wires, so it's built to keep radio signal out. So it is a tough, we have talked about that, but in 2.5, what we have seen is that we have WiMAX or GSM towers in 1800 and 900. And the 1800 towers for the GSM gives us about the same in 2.5, the same coverage, 1 million if you put it by the window. So just to give a little indication there. There's a lot of things why we succeeded, but I think the one thing is that we looked for a technology to meet the need of the market. We looked at best of breed partners, and we wanted to really leverage our mobile brand and the business model. So we have stores, we have a distribution, we have a great prepaid system. So our WiMAX is integrated into our GSM prepaid system, and every WiMAX device has a GSM virtual number. So all the top-up methods to top up your phone, you have one wallet of credit. So I top up my phone with $100, then I use a short code on my phone to share that with my WiMAX. So I top up my WiMAX, and I can add VoIP. So everything is one wallet, one credit. So it's very flexible. And what did we learn? One of the things that happens, at least for me working in a company that is fully, focused on GSM, is that they said, great, this WiMAX sounds great, go make it happen. But really no budget, no resources, etc. So if your board are giving you this, say no thank you. You have to give me resources that are dedicated to this. You have to give me money so I can build out 2 to 3 year coverage and capacity in year 1. You have to give me money so I can spend equally from the core to the edge. So I have something, because when marketing comes to me and say, hey, we want to offer unlimited this, we're going to charge by the packet this, I have to have a core that is as flexible as marketing will be. And don't launch without any traffic shaping or policy. We know that peer-to-peer is going to kill you. You have to have a way of assessing and shaping your traffic. And of course, I say prepaid is the future. Can't say that much more. And if you have a good brand, use it, because like Michael Lai said, if you build it, they will actually come. So, and then of course, Jamaica has, and we are the sponsor of the world's fastest man, Usain Bolt. So how can we go wrong? Thank you very much.
Excellent symbol for WiMAX, world's fastest man. Well, that's been an interesting set of presentations and leads me to many questions, but I don't want to take away too many from the audience. But perhaps I just want to just raise one question so that I get a better sense of the overall services, given the different participants we have. You know, there are a lot of people look at the services that you want to provide on a WiMAX network and say, there's really one application, and it's internet. And then you look at that define that as broadly as you want to define it. And I think we heard Magnus talk about traffic shaping and this sort of thing. But I think that perhaps from the perspective of V Telecom, there was a lot of talk about delivering video services, particularly broadcast video. And I'm wondering if what the panel thinks about the need for a separate delivery mechanism for video services, particularly broadcast video, rather than, you know, there is a technology in the standards and it's being improved for multicast broadcast rather than just strictly unicast taxing the network. Is that something that that any of you guys are looking at for a part of your services?
We actually look into MBS service, but like you mentioned, I think when we plan our service launch, the technology is still not ready. And also another issue we have in Taiwan is that we only have 30 megahertz spectrum. So for MBS, you have to give up like 10 megahertz spectrum to provide 10 to 17 channels. So we decided not to go into that path. And also nowadays, like I mentioned earlier, the new application profile, there's so many movie, TV, streaming content available on the internet already. So the only thing that you really need live information is news and sports that occurs in real time. Anything else you could pretty much get on a tape base or delayed broadcasting. So I think we really studied it, but we decided to not pursue the MBS approach because all the content's out there on the internet already.
Yeah, I can just mention that Digicel actually applied and won together with a wireless TV license in Jamaica as well, and the technology that it would be required to use that is DVB-T in the 450, and I think that is a great technology and a perfect fit, I think, for if you want to get into that. We have, so to speak, put that on pause because, you know, just to get my company to do WiMAX took me 3 years. So before I get in to say to them, now you should go do TV as well, I think I better build out some WiMAX network first and then get into TV. But we definitely look at it as a separate when it comes to broadcast, but to build enough capacity into the network today, where we are building the capacity for the network in Jamaica to start with 6 gigabytes per month per user to start with, to grow to 15. So we're putting that in because we know that people will use, you know, the WiMAX for a lot of content. But for broadcast, I would look at DVB-T as a very good fit.
So right now we don't, when I mentioned about this so-called three-screen quadruple network, actually we'd like to offer customers that they can watch our content using any devices. But of course, there was a broadcast TV. Now, broadcast TV, like Magnus said, we also like to look into other solutions also, for example, like DVB-H or DVB-T kind of solution. But at this time, what we will do is we actually, for some real-time sort of important content like sports or news, important news, we will have those on-demand channel. It's actually on-demand TV. They can use a unicast. They can basically subscribe to those unicast channels. They can watch it whenever they want. But for really broadcast and more numbers of channels available to customers, those looking for other solutions. But I think that one comment I'd like to say is I think that video is really one killer application for WiMAX, because the video require much more bandwidth. Also, that more the managed kind of bandwidth than they needed to deliver video. Other application, I think that for example, internet access and so on, that is not actually compare 3G, 3.5G to a WiMAX. The differentiation is not much, but when you go to a video, I think the ways WiMAX can really show its benefits. So I think the video application is important, but how we carry video on WiMAX, they need to be careful planned. And as I said, one is, of course, that we need to manage our network better. We have to have more capacity to be able to deliver on-demand videos. And of course, that we need to do a traffic shaping to make sure that people don't overuse or abuse the bandwidth for video. But I think the video has to be offered on WiMAX network, because that's, I think, the where the differential really comes from when we compare to 3G or 3.5G networks. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So I have some follow-up questions, but I'm looking for questions from the other side. Yes, please go ahead. I think she's going to bring you a microphone.
I got some different opinion about, you guys are talking more about broadcasting service of video content. But in fact, because of the social networking, multicasting is getting more and more popular, especially multimedia social networking like video Twitter, e-learning, and maybe some other type of multimedia related multicasting. So eventually, I think MBS is still very important for the deployment of WiMAX. And I don't know why so far, especially multiple base station multicasting type of deployment, I don't see any manufacturer or hardware provider trying to support that. So I'm just curious why it is like this.
So for Taiwan, especially for, I think most of the operators here, we don't have 30 megahertz, so that's the biggest issue here. If we have more than 30 megahertz, we definitely were willing to go, allocate some of our spectrum to provide MBS service. But I think not having that luxury is really a primary issue here. And also I mentioned earlier, like you mentioned, all the social network is actually available on internet already. So we do have in place the service restriction with the QoS control and to prevent the P2P streaming. But I mean, we're not so sure about, because recently the FCC in the United States passed the Net Neutrality Act, and sooner or later I'm sure NCC will follow that step. So when that happens, we don't know whether we could restrict or provide some type of service management to block the P2P. So that's going to be some challenge we have. But so for the broadcasting service, we're actually looking to partner, because it all boils down to the chipset again. If you have an MBS service with a media flow or whatever, you still need the additional chip on the device. So that's why for us, we're really just going to use our 30 megahertz on our data and to build a good WiMAX network for now.
I don't think any more comments on that. Video is important, and I think as long as you put your core to support and you can put different quality of service, I think there is ways of turning a negative policy into a positive policy of providing different QoS, a gaming pack for short round trip delay and even for streaming. So I think there's a way of extracting perhaps a few more cents out of a user using QoS for video, for example.
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on that, because I was going to ask some more questions about how we use QoS. I think that from my perspective, the technology that we have in the standard provides a lot of opportunities to do managed QoS, and I think that it really hasn't been yet exploited enough by the networks. So, it seems to me that people worry about things like peer-to-peer, but depending on your plan, you may have a network that's not being used at 3 a.m. and maybe you should be trying to monetize the guy that wants to do peer-to-peer, because maybe that's fine with him. For the right pricing plan, he can do that. But I think, as Magnus pointed out, you have to have an integration between your marketing and your technology in order to carry that off. Maybe there's a way to, I'm wondering if companies are looking at ways to push the QoS and maybe have more complex pricing plans. Are there consumers out there willing to look at things other than flat rate services if they can get some specific service they want? What do you guys think?
Actually, we actually look into the suggestion you have, but the problem with the P2P service is very session intensive. So, for example, a customer may come at 3 a.m. and start his P2P service, but you cannot kick them out unless you don't want to force the issue. So it may even create some sort of a customer complaint. And we did look into, for example, providing a different QoS to support VoIP versus, for example, Skype based on VoIP-based service. But right now, I mean, frankly, in this stage, we're really more worried about the coverage and capacity for global mobile. Because if your coverage, your network's not good, I mean, nobody will even think about using the applications on top. So,
I think P2P is an important application customers like to have. So what we're trying to do actually in our fixed wire network, what we're trying to do is do traffic shaping. So we don't really block users from using P2P, but we're trying to limit the P2P total volume of the traffic. And I expect that on the WiMAX network, we will probably do the same thing. I'm not sure the so-called other pricing model will work in Taiwan or not. That's something we still study. Right now, a lot of customers used to have those flat rate kind of pricing plan. So we still started trying to see if different kind of pricing plan will be can be accepted by customer in Taiwan. But right now we're not sure. We're still trying to understand better about what customer behaviors. But unfortunately, right now, even on a lot of 3G network today, they are going more and more to the flat rate approach, and that making us probably customer would prefer, and also they get used to a flat rate. They don't like to remember how many bytes or how many times they have been using the internet. They like to use flat rate, and they can use whatever they want. So what we can do under this situation is really doing a traffic shaping to make sure that, and try to limit the big user for not abuse the network. But really hard to. Anyway, we don't have a conclusion on what different pricing plan will work or not. It's something that needs to be studied furthermore.
One thing that we have learned from our mobile customers, and 98% of our 10 million customers are prepaid, and we have been very innovative on the prepaid of having free night calling, free night SMS, because the network, as we were saying here, it's empty on the mobile side as well in the night. So if you have a flexible prepaid system, there's nothing stopping you from offering a midnight special for people that wants to download between the hours of 2 to 6 before it's. So to me, it is all about building a network that is extremely flexible when it comes to charging and has capacity that can be easily. The way we built and designed the network in Jamaica is that it's from day one set up for dual carrier. So it is supporting of 2 times 10 megahertz, but we're only going to do 10 megahertz in the beginning. But with software, we just go and double the capacity. On the backhaul, on the microwave, it's the same thing. It can go from 30 megabits per second up to 300 megabits per second, again with software. Because as long as you have a very flexible approach to your design, then depending on where you see, if it is in downtown Kingston, that's where people, then you up the capacity there. And you do so, again, to me, it is the design of your network that is the key to this, that you go with an approach of a cell telco, if you want, a mobile telco. How did they design? And learn from that, because building a network like a fixed will not work. You have to have the skill set and the mindset of that you're building a mobile network, even though it's data today. So.
See, Kelly has a question.
Yeah, you guys talked about personal broadband and cloud computing. I'm curious to your approach to security and to personalized security. And when you think about a lot of folks monitor the internet for their kids using it because it's in a fixed location, like in your kitchen. But when it goes mobile, I think we have an opportunity and a challenge to be able to provide services that help manage how members of our family access the internet. And if you can just give some thoughts on that from a service perspective, and maybe we as mobile broadband operators can do to differentiate our service.
Real quick, in Cayman actually, we are using called the KidSafe product, where you have a master account that the parent has, and it can set for different users in the family to have and then you can put that to a certain device in the future. So you could do what you're talking about, to be able to give access in a safer way, and the same way that you have a master account on the credit, where you can say that, yes, here you go, child A, you get $30 to spend on broadband this month, and you know, it can be like an allowance, and if you behave yourself, you get it. So I think there is, again, it's all about flexibility of having a billing system that can do all of this, because we don't know what's going to come. We don't know what the market is going to demand, or what marketing will dream up. So again, I keep emphasizing, we have an opportunity. It's a flat IP architecture. It's actually fairly easy to put in these kind of safeguards and the systems to really give you that kind of flexibility.
So in Taiwan, our NCC regulates, we have a law for interception requirement. So basically, we could pinpoint the user location with AGPS technology. Of course, we have to provide to the South ID. So also we could provide that to the master account. Also, it's so much of a billing hierarchy. You could have a sub-account tie into a master account. But the user ID will control is still owned by the master. And but right now we also testing some location-based services. But we're not sure on the regulation in Taiwan, whether, for example, in iPhone, when you go on an application, will ask you, will you allow the location to be disclosed? So we're looking to build in a similar type of mechanism. We could provide the message to the user saying, we're going to share your location, so it's up to you to share it or not.
I'll quickly add just to the security issue that I was talking from the content protection issue. So actually, since we have a lot of contents and we want to deliver to users, so we actually, in our network, we have to use a DI mechanism to make sure the content is being, you've been streaming the content, but you're not going to be able to copy or reproduce on other devices. That's something that actually we have to put in our networks. We also will implement so-called the multiple device by one session. So for example, user they have a one account, they pay one service charge once, they get one section. But the user actually can buy multiple devices. We'll make sure that user at any time only one device will be active. So they don't basically, that we can protect our revenue. At the same time, they will not be abused because of multiple device policy. So there's something we have to concern to make sure that when we launch a service, we can deal with users' requests and also behavior.
Who's got the next question? Thomas.
In your presentation, you mentioned that you care about the consumer's privacy data and how to counter it. And you also mentioned the cloud computing technology here. So my question is, do you have any solution to leverage the consumer's privacy data to increase revenue, depending on cloud computing or other thinking about it? I think this is already applicable for the whole panel because Johnson also mentioned the traffic shaping. So that's my question. Thank you.
So our idea from the day one is to build an open platform. And one example I mentioned earlier is to use our traffic shaping and maybe co-work with Skype. But actually that didn't work out too well because Skype is not very well fond of sharing. And so I think for us, the challenge, right? All the application I mentioned, the mobile application is a killer app, but how do you monetize it? How do you get a share of that pie? So I think our we need to work with the service providers such as Google to start with. And for example, we're going to be rolling out with Google's mail service. We won't build our own mail service. We're going to work with Google on that. So we need the service, the application providers to come to us. And why would they come to us? Because we own the pipe, we own the customer base, and we could provide a bill fulfillment for them. So they provide the service, they don't have to worry about collecting the revenue, but we could issue the bills to them. Because in Taiwan, luckily, you need 2 forms of ID to subscribe to WiMAX service. So we do know where to live and where to send the bills. So I think the strategy is to work with the application service providers and try to bring in our value to them, not just the pipe, but also on the fulfillment side.
Yeah, when I have a question. How do you implement the QoS?
Look, okay. So how do we implement QoS? I don't know if I should give credit to the manufacturer we're using, but we're gonna be implementing the QoS control flow both in our home agent, and we also have a traffic analysis tool at the internet side. So we could do it at a group level, meaning you could limit by the application type via deep packet inspection, because you could tell by the IP type whether it's a Skype or it's a P2P frame. We could do on an application base. We're also going to do a subscriber base at the internet side. So we're going to be closing the pipe, for example, P2P pipe at the internet side only. So actually that reminded me, we could provide some P2P service within our WiMAX network. That's another revenue stream that we could think about in the future. But it's a pretty readily available product. So.
In WiMAX, the definition of QoS, we are talking about more user scheduling and resource allocation and very fancy like modulation and coding type of selection. Are any of your carriers trying to move into that direction, or you just take whatever like the provider, the hardware provider provide, and you just take whatever you have instead of building your own QoS type?
Well, I think it is also how the service develops. The way we're going to start is really just 2 QoS. One best effort for all data and one for VoIP to ensure that the VoIP calls are good. And then as you see how your users are using your service, you can start to segment and you can start to do things. But I think what our market is looking for is a very transparent, flexible, simple pricing plan. That is, all you can eat 1 day, all you can eat 7 days, all you can eat something, right? That is where it has to start. And so I think it's not a universal, yes, you do it this way. You have to look at your market, how sophisticated it is, who you're competing against, what is it that you're trying to accomplish. So I just want to make one before George, one just reminder for that NOTF, the operators have a meeting tomorrow from 3 p.m. in room 201A in this building. So just want to make sure that if you come there to listen to other operators. Yeah.
Okay, so I see that we have a sign going up saying that time's up. So we should try to wrap up. I think perhaps the one message that I've gotten from this discussion is that the idea that there is an idea out there that somehow offering generic, just offering IP service is somehow a dead end for an operator because they're nothing but a dumb pipe and they can't make any money. I think that we've had a lot of interesting discussion about lots of ways that internet access in general can be optimized to provide lots of services that customers are looking for, and I think that the operators that we have seen are thinking of very innovative ways to do that. I want to thank them for their time, and I thank you for your participation as well.
Thank you. We want to thank all the panelists and the chair, Mr. Marks. Thank you for their hard work. There was a lot of